Princess Lyra of Zorath stood on the high balcony of the royal palace, her eyes scanning the horizon. The twin suns of her planet cast a warm, golden glow over the city, and the metallic spires reflected light like shards of glass. Her people, the Zorathians, were known across galaxies for their strength, courage, and unyielding pride. Every Zorathian had glowing eyes, a mark of their lineage, but Lyra's were the fiercest of them all. They shone with an intensity that spoke of power, fearlessness, and command. Lyra's hair, silver as starlight, whipped around her face in the wind. She clenched her fists, feeling the strength of her muscles, the power in her bones, and the weight of expectation pressing upon her. As the princess, she was trained to fight, to lead, and to never show weakness. Every day she trained harder than anyone else in the palace. Her swordsmanship was unmatched, her strategies flawless, and her presence enough to silence any room. "Princess Lyra," came a voice behind her, soft yet firm. Lyra turned sharply. "Yes, Commander Rethal?" she asked, her voice like steel. "The council reports unusual activity near the northern borders," Rethal said. His dark eyes met hers unflinching. "Ships from another world. Humans, they say." Lyra's gaze narrowed. Humans. The word carried no meaning of strength in her mind. They were small, fragile creatures, with weak bodies and soft voices. They could not withstand the harsh conditions of Zorath's deserts or the dangerous beasts of the outer lands. And yet, she felt a spark of curiosity. "Humans," she repeated. "Interesting. Bring me the scouts' reports." As Rethal nodded and departed, Lyra turned back to the horizon. She felt an unfamiliar excitement. Something about these humans intrigued her. Perhaps it was the unknown, or perhaps it was the thought that for the first time, someone might challenge her, not in battle but in mind and spirit. The next day, Lyra rode out to meet the newcomers. Her royal hovercraft glided across the jagged mountains, its engines humming like a living creature. Beneath her, the Zorathian soldiers moved with precision, forming a protective escort around her. She was not just a princess. She was a symbol of her people, their fiercest defender. When they arrived at the northern plateau, she saw the humans for the first time. Their ships were small, metallic, and oddly shaped. They did not gleam with the grandeur of Zorathian technology, yet they moved with precision. The humans themselves emerged slowly, some shielding their eyes from Zorath's harsh sun. Lyra's first impression was one of superiority. She laughed softly to herself. They were small, frail, almost fragile. None of them seemed capable of withstanding even a single day in Zorath's wilderness without protection. Her eyes, fierce and glowing, swept over the humans, measuring them, judging them. Then she saw him. Captain Adrian. He was taller than most humans, with dark hair and calm brown eyes. Unlike the others, he stepped forward confidently, without fear, without hesitation. His hands were empty, yet he carried himself as if he were armed with the strength of 100 men. Lyra felt a small flicker in her chest, a strange sensation she could not identify. "Princess Lyra," Adrian called, his voice steady, polite, and commanding at the same time. "We come in peace. We wish to learn about your world and perhaps offer knowledge in return." Lyra raised an eyebrow. Knowledge from humans? The thought was laughable. "You come to my world," she said, her tone sharp. "And you speak of peace? Do you think knowledge alone can protect you from Zorath's dangers?" Adrian smiled slightly as if he expected her challenge. "Perhaps not," he admitted, "but understanding, wisdom, and cooperation can be just as powerful as strength. Even the strongest warrior can fall without them." Lyra's eyes narrowed. Strongest warrior. That was her domain. And yet, something about his words lingered in her mind. "Very well," she said finally. "You may stay, but under one condition. You will respect Zorathian laws, and you will answer my questions truthfully. Any deceit, and you will regret it." Adrian nodded. "Agreed." Over the next few days, Lyra observed the humans closely. They were unlike any species she had encountered. Their bodies were fragile, Yes, but their minds were sharp, and their ways were different from anything Zorath had known. They built machines with precision, solved problems quickly, and adapted to challenges without panic. One day, while walking through the palace gardens, Lyra saw Adrian examining a strange plant that glowed under Zorath's suns. He touched it, gently, and it responded to his presence, bending slightly toward him. Lyra watched from a distance, fascinated. Humans had a patience and curiosity that her people often lacked. "You observe much, Princess," Adrian said, noticing her. "But do you also see what is possible when different strengths come together?" Lyra's eyes flashed. "Possible?" she asked. "Explain." He gestured toward the garden. "Your people are strong, fierce, and courageous. My people are clever, adaptable, and cooperative. Alone, each of us has limits. Together, we might achieve things neither could alone." Lyra felt a strange sensation, a flicker of doubt. She had always believed that strength alone defined a warrior, that weakness was unforgivable, and yet watching Adrian she realized that strength could take many forms. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She stood on her balcony again, looking at the stars. Her mind replayed Adrian's words, his calm demeanor, and the way he had faced Zorathian challenges without fear. She clenched her fists. She was strong. She had always been strong, yet for the first time she wondered if there was more to strength than raw power. The following morning, a message arrived from the human captain. He requested a meeting with her, in private. Lyra considered refusing, but curiosity won. She agreed. In the private chamber, Adrian stood with a device in his hands. "I have come to learn, Princess Lyra," he said, "but I also wish to share. There are ways to protect your people that do not rely solely on weapons. There are ways to solve conflicts without violence. I want to show you." Lyra studied him. She did not lower her guard. "And if I refuse?" she asked. "Then nothing changes," Adrian replied calmly. "Your people remain strong, fierce, and proud. But perhaps you might find a new kind of power that even your strength cannot achieve alone." Lyra's eyes narrowed. She had never been so challenged by a being so seemingly weak. Yet she could not deny that he had made her think. That thought alone was dangerous. Days passed, and Lyra found herself returning to the humans' camp, observing, questioning, and even assisting. In small ways. She saw them solve problems with clever inventions, strategies, and teamwork. Each discovery made her feel something new, a respect for their abilities and an unease she did not understand. During a demonstration of a simple human device, a sudden explosion shook the area. The humans were thrown back, and Lyra instinctively rushed forward. She realized with a start that she had not acted solely out of duty but out of concern for Adrian. Her chest tightened, and her fierce eyes betrayed a flicker of vulnerability. Adrian smiled weakly, brushing dust off his shoulders. "See? Even the strongest must sometimes rely on others." Lyra's heart pounded. She wanted to argue, to deny it, but the truth was clear. The humans, though small and fragile, had something her people often lacked: resilience, cleverness, and the courage to face danger in their own way. As night fell, Lyra returned to the palace, her mind restless. For the first time, she questioned the way she had always measured strength. She had been fierce, proud, and untouchable. Yet now, the human captain had stirred something inside her, a recognition that strength was not just in the body, but in the mind and spirit as well. And deep down she realized, with a mixture of fear and excitement, that her fierce eyes, which had always intimidated others, had now been challenged. Princess Lyra paced in her private chambers, the twin suns of Zorath casting long golden beams across the floor. She had trained all her life to control her emotions, to rely on strength, speed, and sharpness of mind. And yet, since the humans had arrived, she felt a strange unrest within her. Captain Adrian's calm presence, his cleverness, and his ability to solve problems without brute force had unsettled her in ways no Zorathian had ever done. Lyra stopped in front of the mirrored wall, her glowing eyes staring back at her reflection. The reflection showed the warrior she had always been, fierce, strong, and unyielding. Yet beneath that exterior, she felt cracks forming, small, invisible fractures that she could not ignore. She clenched her fists, trying to banish the feeling, but it lingered. A soft knock came at the door. "Enter," Lyra said sharply, her voice betraying only the slightest tension. Commander Rethal stepped inside. "Your Highness," he began cautiously, "there is news from the northern plateau. The humans have requested your assistance in a project. They say it requires a Zorathian perspective." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Assistance? From a human?" Her pride bristled. "I will hear their request," she said, her voice firm though her curiosity was rising. The meeting took place in the human camp. Lyra arrived with her guards, her silver hair glinting in the sunlight, her fierce eyes scanning the assembled. "Humans." Captain Adrian stepped forward. "Princess Lyra," he greeted, bowing slightly. "We have encountered a problem in resource mapping. Your people's knowledge of Zorath's terrain is unmatched. We believe that, with your guidance, we can complete the project efficiently and safely." Lyra studied him carefully. The humans were clever, yes, but they were fragile. She could solve the problem faster alone. And yet, she felt a pull she could not ignore. Her pride argued one thing, but her curiosity whispered another. "Very well," she said finally. "I will help. But know this, I will not tolerate incompetence." Adrian nodded, unbothered. "We expect nothing less." As they worked together, Lyra began to see humans in a new light. They observed, questioned, and adapted in ways she had not anticipated. One human engineer struggled to operate a Zorathian mapping device, and instead of mocking him, Lyra guided him patiently, showing him the correct techniques. She felt a strange warmth in helping him succeed. Adrian noticed her efforts. "You have great patience, Princess," he said softly. "It is rare for someone as powerful as you to take the time to teach." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "I do not do it for praise," she said, though her voice carried a hint of embarrassment. Adrian smiled faintly. "Perhaps not, but it does not make your actions any less admirable." Lyra's heart raced. She was not accustomed to this feeling, admiration from a human, and the unfamiliar warmth of pride that was not tied to battle or victory. The following day, a sudden crisis struck. A landslide blocked a crucial path the humans needed to map, trapping a small team on unstable ground. Lyra acted immediately, leading a rescue with her guards. She was strong, fast, and fearless. Yet as she coordinated with the humans, she noticed something remarkable. They contributed ideas and tools that she had never considered. Captain Adrian directed them with calm precision. He used ropes, levers, and improvised supports to stabilize the path. Lyra followed his instructions, realizing that if she relied solely on her strength, the rescue would have been slower and riskier. When the trapped team was finally safe, Lyra stood back panting, her fierce eyes scanning the scene. For the first time, she felt a quiet acknowledgement of another form of strength, a mental strength, a cleverness that could achieve what brute force alone could not. She looked at Adrian. "You humans, you are not weak," she admitted quietly. Adrian met her gaze, calm and steady. "No, Princess, and neither are you limited by strength alone." Lyra's chest tightened. Pride battled curiosity, admiration, and a flicker of vulnerability. For the first time, she realized that her feelings for humans, and for Adrian in particular, were more complicated than simple observation or respect. Back in her chambers that night, Lyra could not sleep. She stared at the ceiling, her mind replaying the day's events. The humans' cleverness, their cooperation, and their resilience gnawed at her assumptions. She had always believed that strength defined the warrior, and yet here was proof that wisdom, patience, and creativity could rival her own power. A small voice in her mind whispered that she was no longer in complete control. She had allowed a human to influence her thoughts, her feelings, and her understanding of strength, and the realization frightened her. She rose from her bed and walked to her balcony. The twin suns were low in the sky, bathing the city in orange light. Her fierce eyes reflected both the glow of the suns and the flicker of doubt she felt inside. "Am I losing my edge?" she whispered to herself. "Or am I learning something new?" The next morning, Lyra attended a council meeting. The Zorathian leaders were growing impatient with the humans. "Princess," said one counselor sharply, "we cannot allow these humans to influence our decisions. They are weak, fragile, and their ways will corrupt our strength." Lyra felt a surge of conflict. Her pride urged her to agree, to assert Zorathian dominance. Yet her experience with the humans told her otherwise. She remembered the landslide rescue, the resource mapping, and the humans' ingenuity. "They are not as weak as you claim," Lyra said firmly, her voice carrying authority. "We underestimate them at our peril. Strength takes many forms, and wisdom is as important as might." The council erupted in murmurs and objections. Lyra's words challenged tradition, challenged their beliefs, and challenged her own people. She felt the weight of responsibility, knowing that her opinion could shape Zorath's future. Adrian watched from the corner, his calm expression unwavering. Lyra felt a strange reassurance in his presence, as if he understood the struggle within her. That evening, Lyra sought Adrian's counsel privately. "Why do your people survive in ways mine cannot?" she asked, her voice quieter than usual. Adrian considered her question. "We survive because we adapt, Princess. We work together, we plan ahead, and we use our minds to overcome obstacles. Strength of body is only one part of survival. Intelligence, cooperation, and creativity are just as important." Lyra felt a rush of conflicting emotions. She had always believed her fierce eyes and her warrior's body were all she needed. Now she realized that she had been blind to other forms of power. She wanted to resist, to reject this knowledge, but she could not. "I feel weak," she admitted quietly, surprising even herself. Adrian's eyes softened. "Recognizing a new form of strength is not weakness, Princess, it is growth." Lyra's chest tightened. She wanted to argue, to deny it, yet the truth resonated deep within her. For the first time, she felt the vulnerability of her own pride. A human had made her question herself, and in doing so, had opened a door she had never dared to explore. Over the next few weeks, Lyra worked closely with the humans. She began to appreciate their perspectives, their methods, and their resilience. She found herself laughing with them, sharing insights, and even taking advice. Every small victory, every successful collaboration chipped away at her unshakable pride. Yet she also felt fear. If her people discovered how much she relied on humans, they would see it as weakness. And Zorathians did not forgive weakness easily. Her fierce eyes, once symbols of intimidation, now reflected uncertainty. She struggled to reconcile her warrior identity with the lessons she was learning. One evening, while observing the humans constructing a new energy device, Lyra noticed how naturally they worked together. They communicated without arrogance, solved problems without pride, and celebrated each success without claiming superiority. She felt a pang of longing. Could her people embrace such humility? Could she? Adrian approached, noticing her thoughtful expression. "You are learning quickly, Princess," he said quietly. Lyra's eyes met his. "I am learning," she admitted. "But it is difficult. My people value strength above all else. Yet I see now that strength is more than muscle and battle." Adrian nodded. "Exactly. You are strong, fierce, and brave. And now you are also learning another kind of strength, wisdom and understanding." Lyra felt her heart race. For the first time, she felt truly seen, not as a warrior, but as someone capable of growth, change, and compassion. And deep down she knew that her life and her world would never be the same. Part 3 ends with Princess Lyra standing quietly in the human camp, her fierce eyes reflecting curiosity, admiration, and the first true crack in her armor. She realizes that humans are not weak and that trusting them, and perhaps even caring for them, could change everything she once believed about strength, pride, and leadership. The morning sun rose over Zorath, casting long shadows across the rocky plains. Princess Lyra walked through the palace halls, her silver hair catching the light. Though she had trained all her life to control every emotion, today she felt a mix of curiosity and irritation. The humans remained in the northern plateau, yet their presence unsettled her. Captain Adrian's calm confidence gnawed at her pride in ways she did not fully understand. "Your Highness," said Commander Rethal, bowing low. "The humans have requested another audience. They wish to discuss trade, knowledge, and technology." Lyra's eyes narrowed. Trade and knowledge. She knew her people had nothing to fear from them physically, but she sensed that these humans might possess a power of another kind, a power she had never faced before. "Very well," she said. "Prepare a chamber for our meeting. I will hear what they have to say." When Lyra arrived at the meeting hall, Adrian was already there, surrounded by his team. He stood straight, his calm brown eyes meeting hers. Despite her initial scorn, Lyra could not ignore the confidence he carried. It was not arrogance, it was quiet strength. "Princess Lyra," Adrian greeted. "Thank you for meeting with us again. We wish to show you something new today." Lyra crossed her arms, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "I am listening. But know this, human. I do not tolerate deception. Speak clearly and truthfully." Adrian nodded. As always, he gestured to a device on the table. It was small, yet complex, with moving parts and lights that pulsed in rhythm. "This is a resource, synthesizer. It can take elements from your environment and convert them into materials your people need, without causing harm to the land." Lyra raised an eyebrow. Zorathians were warriors, not builders, but even she knew the value of resources, yet she felt a twinge of skepticism. "And you expect me to believe that such a small machine can do the work of dozens of Zorathian engineers?" Adrian smiled. "I expect you to judge by results, not appearances." Lyra watched as he activated the device. Within minutes it produced a strong, lightweight metal. It was unfamiliar to her, yet durable, and far superior to what her people normally produced. She felt a flicker of admiration, though she would never admit it aloud. Over the next several days, Lyra continued to observe the humans. Their approach to challenges was unlike anything she had ever seen. Where Zorathians relied on strength, humans relied on thought, cooperation, and creativity. They solved problems quickly and efficiently, even in situations that would have caused panic in Zorathian soldiers. Lyra found herself drawn to their methods. She asked questions, tested their devices, and even participated in minor experiments. Each time she realized that these humans had a different kind of strength, one that complemented her own. Yet every admission of respect made her feel conflicted. To admire a human was dangerous in the eyes of Zorathian culture. One evening, Adrian approached her while she was training in the palace courtyard. She was swinging her sword with precision, her every movement reflecting years of discipline. "You fight well," he said quietly, observing her form. "But even the strongest warrior can benefit from understanding others' methods." Lyra stopped mid-swing, her fierce eyes meeting his. "And you believe humans can teach a Zorathian warrior?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "I do," he replied. "Strength is not only in the body. Wisdom, patience, and understanding can make a warrior stronger than any blade." For a moment, Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had trained all her life to rely solely on her physical strength. Yet Adrian's words hinted at something greater, a power she had never fully considered. The next challenge came unexpectedly. A sudden sandstorm swept across the northern plateau, catching both humans and Zorathians off guard. Visibility dropped to nearly zero, and the harsh wind threatened to topple even the strongest warriors. Lyra ordered her soldiers to form protective circles around the humans. She led from the front, her sword cutting through debris when necessary. Yet she noticed something remarkable. The humans were not panicked. They moved calmly, signaling to each other, using tools and devices to navigate the storm safely. At one point, Adrian shouted instructions to his team, and they followed without hesitation. They adapted, adjusted, and protected each other with precision. Lyra's heart pounded, not from fear, but from astonishment. These humans were fragile, yes, but their minds and teamwork allowed them to withstand challenges that even Zorathian strength alone might have failed against. When the storm finally passed, Lyra surveyed the scene. Not a single human was injured, and her soldiers, though battered, had survived thanks to their cooperation. She could not deny it. Human ingenuity had saved them all. In the quiet that followed, Lyra found herself speaking to Adrian privately. "You humans, you are not what I expected," she said, her voice softer than usual. "I thought you weak. I thought you fragile. And yet, you endure, adapt, and survive. How is this possible?" Adrian met her gaze calmly. "Strength takes many forms, Princess. Your people have power in your bodies. We have power in our minds. Alone, each is limited. Together, we can accomplish more than either could alone." Lyra felt a conflict she had never known. Her pride as a Zorathian warrior rebelled against this idea. Yet deep inside she knew it was true. She had underestimated humans, and that realization made her feel weak. "Do not mistake my interest for weakness," she said quickly, though her words felt hollow even to her own ears. "I am still the fiercest warrior on Zorath." Adrian smiled gently. "I never doubted it." Days turned into weeks, and Lyra continued her private observations of the humans. She noticed how they learned quickly, adapted to new environments, and used creativity to solve problems. One night she saw Adrian teaching a small group of Zorathian children how to construct a simple energy generator. The children were fascinated, their eyes wide with wonder. Lyra felt a strange warmth at the sight. Even as a warrior, she recognized the value of knowledge and guidance. But with admiration came confusion. For the first time, Lyra felt that her fierce pride, her reputation as the strongest, might not be enough. She could not deny the truth. Humans possessed a strength that even she could not match. And with that recognition came a new feeling: vulnerability. The turning point came during a formal meeting between the Zorathian Council and the human delegation. A tense debate arose over resource allocation. Zorathians wanted to control everything through force, while humans proposed careful planning, cooperation, and minimal risk. Lyra stood at the center, her eyes blazing with authority. She could see her council members growing frustrated with the humans. Yet when Adrian calmly outlined a strategy that combined Zorathian strength with human ingenuity, the results were undeniable. Resources were maximized, soldiers were safe, and the humans had proven that their methods worked. Her pride rebelled. She had always believed that strength alone defined leadership. Yet she could not ignore the success Adrian's approach had achieved. In the corner of her mind, she realized that her fierce eyes, which had always intimidated others, had met their match, not with weapons, but with thought and strategy. That evening, Lyra returned to the palace courtyard alone. She stood under the twin suns, her glowing eyes reflecting both light and uncertainty. Her hands rested on the hilt of her sword, yet she did not feel the usual rush of confidence. Instead, she felt something new, the recognition that strength could come in many forms, and that sometimes even the fiercest warrior might need guidance from those she had once considered weak. She clenched her fists, trying to push away the feelings of doubt and admiration. Yet the image of Captain Adrian, calm, clever, and unshakable, remained in her mind. For the first time, she wondered if humans could teach her something beyond combat, something that even the fiercest Zorathian warrior could not learn alone. Lyra's heart raced as she realized the truth. The human captain had challenged her in ways no Zorathian had ever dared. He had made her question her beliefs, her strength, and even her pride, and with that a new chapter of her life, and of Zorath's history, was beginning. Part 2 ends with Princess Lyra standing alone in the courtyard, her fierce eyes glowing, not just with strength but with curiosity and a flicker of vulnerability. For the first time she realizes that humans are not weak, and that their presence on Zorath might change her forever. The twin sons of Zorath had just begun their slow descent toward the horizon, painting the sky with shades of amber and crimson. Princess Lyra stood on the balcony of her palace, her silver hair blowing in the wind. Her glowing eyes reflected the fading light, but beneath the familiar fierceness lay a storm of doubt and uncertainty. For weeks she had worked closely with the humans, observing their methods, learning their strategies, and quietly admiring their resilience. Yet she had never admitted it, neither to her council nor to herself, that she felt dependent. And tonight that feeling would be tested in ways she could never have imagined. A sudden alarm echoed through the palace halls. Lyra's heart jumped. Commander Rethal appeared, his expression tense. "Your Highness," he said, bowing slightly, "a rival faction within our council has mobilized forces. They claim the humans are corrupting Zorathian tradition and demand that the expedition be removed immediately. They are preparing a coup." Lyra's fists clenched. Her people had always revered strength and dominance, but some feared the influence of outsiders. She knew she could confront them alone using her might and combat skills, but this time, brute force would not be enough. The humans' presence, the cooperation she had come to rely on, was now crucial. "Alert the human delegation," Lyra ordered, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her chest. "We face a threat, and I will not face it alone." At the northern plateau, the humans assembled quickly. Captain Adrian stepped forward, his calm eyes meeting hers. "Princess Lyra," he said, "we are ready to help, but we must act strategically. This is not a battle of strength alone. It is a battle of wits, coordination, and trust." Lyra nodded, swallowing the tight lump in her throat. For the first time, she felt the weight of reliance on a human. Her fierce eyes, which had always conveyed absolute control, now betrayed a flicker of vulnerability. She had spent her life as the strongest, the fiercest, the untouchable warrior of Zorath, and now, she realized, she could not succeed alone. The rival faction moved swiftly, sending a squad of elite soldiers to the palace gates. Lyra led her loyalists to meet them, but the humans had prepared a strategy. Adrian divided their combined forces into coordinated teams, assigning tasks based on each member's strengths. "Princess," he said, "trust in the plan. Your soldiers are strong, but your strength alone cannot win this. Let us work together." Lyra's heart pounded. Trust. It was a word she had rarely spoken in her life, yet she knew he was right. She nodded sharply. "Do it." The battle began at dusk. Zorathian warriors clashed with the rival faction, their swords flashing in the fading light. Lyra fought at the front, her blade cutting through the opposition with skill unmatched by any ordinary soldier. Yet she noticed something extraordinary. Humans working alongside her soldiers, using clever tactics, devices, and strategies to outmaneuver the enemy. One human engineer deployed an energy net that trapped a group of advancing warriors. Another used a small device to disable heavy weapons, turning the tide of battle. Lyra's heart raced as she realized that without these human innovations, her strength alone would not have been sufficient. Her fierce eyes, which had once intimidated, friend and foe alike, now reflected awe and reliance. For the first time, she felt her vulnerability openly. At a critical moment, a rival commander broke through the lines, aiming directly for Lyra. She moved to intercept, but a human soldier called out, pointing to a weak point in the enemy formation. Following his direction, Lyra redirected her strike, cutting down the commander with precision. The soldier's quick thinking had saved her life. Lyra's chest tightened. Pride battled gratitude, fear battled respect. She had always believed that her strength made her untouchable, yet here she was, saved not by her own might alone, but by the cleverness of a human. When the battle ended, the rival faction was defeated, their forces retreating under the combined strategy of humans and Zorathians. Lyra stood in the center of the battlefield panting, her silver hair matted with sweat and dust. Her fierce eyes, though still glowing, now reflected something new. Recognition, respect, and vulnerability. Captain Adrian approached, his expression calm but serious. "You did well, Princess," he said, "but you did not do it alone, that is the point. Strength is not only in the individual, it is in the union of minds, hearts, and skills." Lyra felt a lump in her throat. I understand," she whispered, her voice softer than usual. "But it feels strange. I have always been the strongest. To rely on others, it feels weak." Adrian placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "True strength is knowing when to act alone and when to work with others. It is not weakness to trust, to learn, or to rely on those you respect. It is wisdom." Lyra's chest tightened even more. Wisdom, cooperation, trust. These were not just words. They were a new kind of power, one she had never fully understood until now, and the realization frightened her. That night, in her chambers, Lyra could not rest. She replayed the events of the battle over and over. Every human who had aided her, every clever device, every strategy that saved her soldiers and herself echoed in her mind. She had always measured her worth by strength alone, yet today she had learned that strength had limits, and that intelligence, teamwork, and trust could surpass even the mightiest warrior. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Adrian standing there, his calm presence comforting in the quiet night. "You should rest, Princess," he said gently. "Tomorrow will bring new challenges, and your mind must be clear." Lyra studied him, her fierce eyes searching his calm face. For the first time she felt the urge to confide in someone she had once considered weak, yet who had proven his strength in ways she could not deny. "Adrian," she said quietly, "thank you for everything today. I could not have succeeded without you." Adrian smiled softly. "You gave the orders, Princess. You led your people. I only helped. But it means a lot to hear you say that." Lyra's chest tightened. For the first time she admitted to herself that she had relied on a human, and in doing so she had grown stronger in ways she had never imagined. Yet the feeling of vulnerability remained. She was no longer untouchable, no longer entirely fierce, and no longer fully defined by her physical strength alone. The following morning the council met again. Whispers filled the chamber as Lyra entered, her fierce eyes glowing. For the first time she addressed her people not as a warrior asserting dominance, but as a leader who had learned something new. "Counselors," she began, her voice steady. "We faced a threat yesterday. It was not overcome by strength alone. Human ingenuity, cooperation, and cleverness played a vital role in protecting Zorath. I have learned that strength is not only in our muscles and weapons. True strength includes wisdom, trust, and understanding." The council erupted in murmurs and objections. Some were furious, seeing her words as betrayal. Others were intrigued, curious about this new perspective. Lyra met their gazes evenly, her fierce eyes unwavering despite the tension. "This is not weakness," she continued. "It is evolution. We adapt, we grow, and we learn from others. The humans are not our enemies. They are teachers, allies, and examples of strength in a different form. We must embrace this change if Zorath is to thrive." Later, Lyra walked alone through the palace gardens. The battle was over, the rival faction defeated, yet she still felt the echo of vulnerability. She realized something profound. For the first time in her life, she understood that relying on others did not make her weak. It made her stronger, wiser, and more capable than she had ever been alone. She paused by a glowing plant, remembering the first day she had seen Adrian examining it. The memory made her smile faintly. Humans had changed her perception, had challenged her assumptions, and had opened her eyes to new kinds of strength. Lyra's fierce eyes softened slightly as she looked toward the horizon. Her people would have to learn this lesson too, and she would guide them. But first, she had to fully embrace it herself. Part 4 ends with Princess Lyra standing under the twin suns, her fierce eyes reflecting strength, wisdom, and a flicker of vulnerability. She has faced a real crisis, relied on humans, and discovered that true power is a combination of courage, intelligence, and trust. Her journey of growth and transformation is only beginning. The first rays of the twin suns bathed the city of Zorath in a warm, golden light. Princess Lyra stood on the balcony of her palace, her silver hair shimmering, her glowing eyes reflecting both pride and a newfound calm. The events of the past weeks had changed everything. She had faced challenges she never imagined, witnessed human ingenuity, and discovered that strength was more than muscle and combat skill. Today, Zorath was different, and so was she. The palace courtyard was alive with activity. Zorathian soldiers moved with purpose, humans worked alongside them, and new structures hummed with energy and innovation. The cooperation between the two species had become a symbol of hope and progress. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the weight of leadership settle comfortably on her shoulders. Her first task of the day was a meeting with the council. The chamber was tense, filled with Zorathian leaders who had once questioned her judgment. Now as she entered, the room fell silent. Her fierce eyes scanned the council, but this time they reflected wisdom rather than intimidation. "Counselors," Lyra began, her voice steady and commanding, "we have faced challenges that tested not only our strength but our understanding. We have learned that true power lies not in dominance alone but in unity, intelligence, and trust." Murmurs spread through the council. Some leaders still resisted change, but many others listened with interest, their curiosity piqued by the results of the past battles. Lyra continued, "The humans are not weak. They have taught us that cooperation and cleverness can achieve what brute force cannot. Together, we can protect Zorath, expand our knowledge, and create a future where our people thrive." For the first time, the council saw their princess, not only as a fierce warrior, but as a wise leader. Slowly, one by one, they nodded in agreement. After the council meeting, Lyra walked to the northern plateau to inspect the progress of a joint human-Zorathian project. Captain Adrian was there, coordinating efforts to build a new energy grid that would supply the city and surrounding regions. "Princess Lyra," Adrian said, his calm eyes meeting hers, "your people have learned quickly. The cooperation here is remarkable." Lyra smiled faintly. "It is not just my people," she replied. "We have learned from each other. Humans have shown us that there is strength in patience, strategy, and understanding." Adrian nodded. "And you have shown that courage and decisiveness are just as important. Together, we complement one another." Lyra's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and admiration. For the first time, she fully embraced the truth. Strength alone was not enough, but combined with wisdom and cooperation, it could become unstoppable. As they walked through the project site, Lyra noticed Zorathian soldiers working seamlessly alongside humans. One team lifted a heavy energy panel with precision, guided by human engineers who calculated angles and weights. Another team navigated the uneven terrain using human-designed devices to ensure safety and efficiency. Lyra's fierce eyes softened as she observed the harmony. She remembered the first days of the human arrival, her suspicion, her pride, and her belief that they were weak. Now she understood that strength came in many forms, and that true leadership required recognizing and valuing all of them. A sudden shout broke her thoughts. One of the human engineers had miscalculated a panel's placement, and it began to tip dangerously. Lyra moved instinctively, her reflexes sharp as ever, and stabilized the panel with her own strength. Adrian and the humans quickly reinforced it with devices and teamwork. Lyra stood back, panting slightly. She realized that moments like this were not failures. They were opportunities to learn, to collaborate, and to grow. Her pride no longer resisted help. It welcomed it. She had learned that relying on others did not diminish her power. It enhanced it. Adrian approached, a small smile on his face. "You acted quickly, Princess," he said, "and your trust in our guidance made all the difference." Lyra nodded. "It is no longer a question of pride. I understand that our strength is multiplied when we work together." The days that followed were filled with progress and collaboration. Humans and Zorathians built new infrastructure, shared knowledge, and trained together. Lyra spent time learning about human methods, teaching her people to combine Zorathian courage with human ingenuity. At night, she often stood alone on the balcony looking at the stars. Her fierce eyes reflected both the challenges she had faced and the wisdom she had gained. She thought of the battles, the landslide rescue, and the coup. She remembered how a human's quick thinking had saved her life, how their inventions had protected her people, and how Captain Adrian had challenged her pride in ways she never expected. And she smiled. A month later, Lyra convened a festival in honor of the cooperation between humans and Zorathians. Citizens gathered in the city center, celebrating the new era. Humans displayed their inventions, taught young Zorathians, and shared stories of their homeworld. Zorathians demonstrated their combat skills, their discipline, and their bravery. The two species learned from one another, laughed together, and shared a vision of a united future. Lyra stood on the main stage, her silver hair shining in the sunlight, her glowing eyes reflecting both authority and warmth. She addressed the crowd. "People of Zorath," she began, "we have faced great challenges. We have fought, we have learned, and we have grown. Today, we celebrate not only our strength, but our unity. We have discovered that courage, wisdom, and cooperation are all forms of power, and together, we can achieve greatness beyond anything we imagined." The crowd erupted in cheers. Humans and Zorathians alike felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. Lyra smiled, knowing that her people were ready to embrace a new way of life, a way that combined the fierceness of Zorathian warriors with the ingenuity and resilience of humans. Later, Lyra walked through the festival, observing the interactions between humans and Zorathians. She saw children learning from human engineers, soldiers practicing strategies alongside their human counterparts, and citizens exchanging ideas freely. The world she had once known, defined solely by strength, was changing, and she had helped lead the way. She found Adrian near a group of young Zorathians demonstrating a simple energy device. His calm presence and steady guidance were as reassuring as ever. Lyra approached him, her glowing eyes softening. "You have done more than teach my people," she said quietly. "You have changed me. You have shown me that strength is not only in the body, but in the mind, the heart, and the willingness to trust others." Adrian looked at her, his expression gentle. "And you, Princess Lyra, have shown that courage and leadership can inspire change. You embraced a new kind of strength without losing yourself. That is rare and remarkable." Lyra's chest swelled with emotion. For the first time, she felt truly complete, not just as a warrior, but as a leader, a learner, and a bridge between worlds. As the festival continued, Lyra stood once more on her palace balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the buildings and streets. Humans and Zorathians mingled freely, building a future together. Lyra's fierce eyes reflected the light of both suns, a symbol of her people's strength and her own transformation. She had begun as a warrior who relied solely on might, feared weakness, and doubted the value of other species. Through challenges, crises, and collaboration, she had discovered a new kind of strength, a strength that came from understanding, trust, and unity. And in that moment, she knew that Zorath's future was brighter than ever. Epilogue. Months later, Princess Lyra stood on a cliff overlooking the northern plains, where humans and Zorathians worked side by side. She remembered her first encounter with Captain Adrian, her initial disdain for humans, and the pride that once blinded her. Now she saw humans not as weak beings, but as partners, teachers, and friends. She had learned that true power was not only physical strength, but wisdom, courage, and the ability to trust. Her people had grown, her world had changed, and she had changed too. Adrian approached her quietly. "Princess Lyra," he said, "you're..." People are fortunate to have a leader like you. Lyra smiled, her glowing eyes soft but unwavering. And I am fortunate to have learned from you. Together they watched the twin suns set, a symbol of a new dawn for Zorath, a dawn defined not by dominance or fear, but by courage, wisdom, and unity. Part 5 ends with Princess Lyra fully embracing her growth and the unity between humans and Zorathians. Her fierce eyes now reflect both strength and wisdom, symbolizing a future where courage, intelligence, and cooperation define true power.